Hi there, welcome to IT Wire TV. Today, our special guest is Matt Salier from the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre, otherwise known as Oz3C. Now, Matt, I understand that Oz3C, together with CSIRO and the Australian Government Department of Home Affairs, is looking for input from businesses to help improve data security for Australians. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, David. And then thanks for having me. Wonderful, wonderful to be here. We're running a project on the voluntary data classification framework for CSIRO, Data 61, that part of the CSIRO and Home Affairs, and it's a really important component of the National Cyber Strategy. It sits under that Shield to Safe Technology piece, which really talks about how to help people understand how to protect the most valuable data sets we have in society and how we can lift up governance and security on that data. So the first step in that project is to get a really broad range of industry consultation across sectors, across sizes, across maturity levels, so that we really can help understand how to build a framework that's going to be fit for purpose for the Australian economy. So very exciting, great opportunity for businesses large and small to get involved and have their say. I think the strategy, as it's evolved over time, has been quite positively consultative all the way through. The government is genuinely trying to engage with industry, and this is a wonderful chance for people to get in and have their say.
Yeah, fantastic. No, that is exciting. I guess what inspired it though? What was behind the creation of the voluntary data classification framework, and how does that align with Australia's national cybersecurity strategy?
Well, of course, we hear every day, and unfortunately, far too often, the negative stories about cybersecurity breaches and challenges. One reported cybercrime every 6 minutes, and scarily, that's just what's reported.
Mm.
So we do need to ensure that we're giving everyone the tools, whether it's a consumer, whether it's a parent, a child, a school teacher, what have you, the tools to make themselves safe and protected. We do need to do the same for our business community and to ensure that digital economy that we now are just fully immersed in day to day is robustly secured. So I think the inspiration is that helping people understand the value of data, the value of personal identifying information, and the risk that that poses if it gets into the wrong hands, and if you haven't thought about how you protect it, how you store it, the governance you put around how you change it is really important. So yeah, I guess inspiration, to use your word, was really about giving businesses the tools. The framework will give them the tools to make that assessment, to think about their data as a valuable asset, just as they would the goods on the shelf or the human resources, the people they have to provide the services they do. And I think that's probably the big step change, David, is to really think about our data as having this significant value, and therefore we need to think of it just as we do, physical security. Yeah, we put locks on doors, we put
Mhm.
swipe cards for people to get into rooms. How are we applying the same thinking to our data and our data sets?
Yes. And what are the challenges businesses are currently facing in trying to, without your help, what are some of the issues a business have trying to classify and protect data themselves? And how does the new
Well, I think that the small business community particularly, and we talk small to medium businesses, that the engine room of our economy, have a huge amount of things they grapple with every day. How do they deal with cost of living pressures? How do they deal with the moving nature of our economy generally? How do they keep the doors open? How do they keep paying their staff so they can support their families and support the communities in which they live? These are omnipresent challenges for small businesses. Simultaneously, of course, we need to help them understand how to ensure that they recognize that yes, cybersecurity is sometimes comes across more complex than it ought be, but it is a critical component to ensuring that those things that they value, keeping the doors open, keeping the tills turning over, keeping the livelihoods of those they employ, in where they want them to be, is actually linked to their ability to have a security posture, an understanding of, in this case, their data and their valuable IP that is protected. So I think those challenges is to how do we help get this into the top 3 to 5 things a business is dealing with. There's wonderful tools out there. The Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre, my organisation, has a whole host. The Australian Cyber Security Centre, the federal government's initiative, incredible, rich amount of resources to tap into. But there's so much, and there's so many other things small businesses are dealing with. That's the challenge. How do we get that cut through? And so these industry engagement workshops we're rolling out with Home Affairs and with CSIRO are a wonderful way to kind of spend a couple of hours and understand how you need to think about it as a business, but simultaneously contribute to the design of a framework that ultimately will flow through the economy in a regulatory sense as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned those other organisations. I guess how does that collaboration then between your good selves, the Oz3C, CSIRO's Data 61, Department of Home Affairs, how is that collaboration, I guess, working together to contribute to developing this framework?
Yeah, look, it's in our DNA to collaborate. We've been doing it for, nearly 5 years now since we were born in the middle of the global pandemic, when it was very difficult to collaborate in the traditional ways. We got very good at this sort of online piece. But a great example of the federal government and Home Affairs looking for the parts of the ecosystem who can most contribute to the objectives in that strategy and the action plan that underpins it. So CSIRO, tremendous science-based organisation, very deep research capability, and in developing those frameworks that can sit alongside and nestle into legislation and strategic intent of policy. So you've sort of got a policy, you've got a legislative framework, and you need to have things that enable those two to connect. So CSIRO have been a wonderful resource for Australia to tap into for a bunch of things, and this framework's no different. And Home Affairs, like I said, are very aware that they need to get broad input into a whole range of those points in that action plan that falls out of the strategy. And so, we're really enjoying that collaboration. We've got, first assistant secretaries heading to each of these events to hear from the coalface, so to speak, from businesses about what they're actually grappling with. That will genuinely help shape the framework to be something that all businesses can engage in a really positive way.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you talked about the workshops. So how do these workshops help provide actionable guidance to businesses? And for people who attend, what can they expect to take away from the sessions?
Yeah, so a really great question. So structured format where there's an opportunity to both understand what data classification means, look at programs around the world that do elements of that, the GDPR in Europe as one example, but there's many others, and then taking you through as taking your business and how you think about the data you have and what data you collect and store and so on, taking you through some key questions about how you're dealing with that presently, and then using that to both inform maturity levels in the economy, but also to feed back to the individuals in the room at these workshops. Well, here's some things that you should perhaps begin to think about. I guess somewhat foreshadowing the framework that will evolve from this, but around how you store personal information, how you store data sets together, whether they're in the same parts of the system or not, whether you need to collect everything you collect from a customer or a supplier now, those sorts of things. So some very practical, and a lot of the time this stuff, David, is quite simple, where you're asking just open questions about, well, how do you deal with that now? And the feedback will both inform the framework, but give an opportunity for the facilitators in the room to pass on some of that expert guidance about steps that you can take the minute you walk out that door to again de-risk your business from what is a fairly significant threat vector at the moment.
Yes. No, well, I'm persuaded. So the voluntary data classification framework sounds like an awesome thing, but I suppose conversely, what are the risks to Australia's cybersecurity landscape if companies don't adopt a unified approach like the VDCF?
Well, the risks really fall at the consumer and the supply chain end. So at the consumer end, we want to have confidence in the way that we interact with the businesses that we interact with digitally. So I want to have confidence that the way that you collect my data when I purchase something online or book a service for my car or a health appointment is going to be managed in such a way that the risk to that data getting into the wrong hands is minimized, and therefore the framework is essential to do that for a consumer. When we think about supply chains and the interactions of of businesses with other businesses, being able to understand what data they need to transfer between each other, how much access do I need to have to your data to provide you with a good or service and vice versa, is really, really important. So the risk of not having a framework like this is there's no consistency to that. There's, we may have a great relationship, our two businesses, and we may decide to do it in a particular way, but the next business that you engage with is totally different. And that just creates risk and creates inconsistencies, which are the threat vectors that those adversaries, those nefarious agents will pursue to try and wedge advantage out of exfiltrating data, using it for purposes that are criminal in their intent. So I think consistency is really the key piece here. So if we don't have a framework, if we don't know what good looks like, then we get a really inconsistent way that consumers interact with businesses and businesses interact with businesses, and that's no good for anyone.
No, there's some very important points. I'm persuaded, and I think, Matt, what you're doing sounds like an awesome thing. So for any of our listeners and readers, how can Australian businesses get involved in these workshops and the research to give their insights and be part of it?
Yeah, so we've got workshops happening all through December. So Sydney, 3rd of December, the middle of the city there at UTS. Brisbane, the 4th of December, again, middle of the city at University of Queensland. One here in Adelaide, in our headquarters here at Lot 14. Once again, right in the middle of the city, so easy for businesses to get to. And then the final one on the 10th of December down in Melbourne at NBN on Collins Street. So we have an opportunity to engage physically in those ones. We also have a hybrid workshop that's out there. You can jump on our website, Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre, look up the Voluntary Data Classification Framework, and I'm sure there'll be a link at the bottom of this article as well to register for those. We're also doing a broader survey where we're asking businesses to, if they can't make it to a workshop or they can't make it to even the hybrid one, to jump on that survey and work through those questions. There's a bit of detail there, so we understand that, but it really will help inform a framework for Australian businesses that is fit for purpose and enhances our economic opportunities, doesn't impede it.
Yeah, no, some very valuable things there and plenty of great ways for people to get involved. That's wonderful. No, Matt, you've been very informative and I enjoyed that a lot. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it, David. Thanks heaps.
So that's been Matt Salier from the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre. Thank you so much, Matt.
Cheers, mate. Have a great day.
You too.